Another session of wisdom talks and meditation. And I have Raghunath Cappo, who has joined us today. And I'm just looking forward to speaking to him. We're going to be speaking about the living your bhakti. This is essential for us to try and move forward in our lives. So we're going to be talking about this. And before he joins on Instagram, I just want to just ask the question to everybody here. What does it mean, living your bhakti? That's what I want to know. What does it mean? And I want you to give some comments, some questions, and really let's make it interactive. So I'm just waiting for him to come onto Instagram. I'm just checking him right now. And let's see if I can try and get him on. Okay, we're just waiting as we get. So just on Instagram, if you can find me, Raghunath, that'd be great. We have him on Facebook. We're just getting him on Instagram right now. So how has everyone's day been? I want to put a heart if your day's been good. Put a heart in the comments. Put a heart in the comments box. How has it been? And today, our talk, we want to really focus on this aspect of living our bhakti. So I'm just having a look if I can see Raghunath coming on right now.
Hey, you know what?
Not yet. He's just trying. So I'm just going to check if he's here. Not yet.
For some reason,
So we're just trying, Raghunath, to just try to get on. I can see Patricia's come on. Thank you, Rohan. Thank you, Beauty and the Wife Life. I know you're a big fan of Raghunath and the guys, and I'm just waiting for the request. I think what we'll have to do is, if it's the problem, is we'll try to see if we can get again, but we're just trying again. Let's see if he's coming on. Not yet. Not yet. Okay, let me just try something out here. So I'm going to look at the comments right now while we wait. Okay, Lyra, thank you for joining. Ankita, thank you for joining. And we've also got Matan, and I'm looking, Dia, Auraba, Nature, Beauty and the Wife Life, Om, Krishna Mystery. Fantastic. I'm just still trying to see. We're just going to have to come off Instagram. I'm going to call it back on. So please do not go anywhere. I'm going to try again just so we can get him on. So I'm going to try again, Raghunath. So I know you're there. I'm just going to try again to get you on and just make this work. Just bear with me a second. Here we go. See if you can see me now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but I'm just waiting for your Instagram.
Instagram is not connecting. I have some very crappy signal today. This is what happens when you live in the sticks.
Okay. Well, we'll try. If we can't get it, what we'll do, we'll talk as we are right now on this other channel,
okay.
And then we'll take it from there. So let's just focus on that.
Like my internet on my computer's working, but my internet on my phone, I can't figure this out.
That's fine. So let's do that. So thank you so much for joining today. I'm really, really happy to have you. And so is the crowd. So we have, just so everybody's aware, we've got Mayapur TV on, we've got Chant now on, we've got Bhagavad Gita channel, we've got Fortunate People, and we've got Raghunath's channel on right now.
I'm very impressed
on our lovely Facebook.
Very impressed with how you deal with all this stuff. How do you figure all this stuff out? It seems like certain people just know how to do this, and I'm just not getting the memo.
No, it's more just to do with just trying to do some service and making sure it works. So just so those that don't know who Raghunath is, okay, I'm going to say it. Where have you been? Okay, this guy is phenomenal. He's everywhere. I'm loving his wisdom of the sages, and we'll talk about that later. So a former monk, an ex-punk, a yoga teacher, and a spiritual storyteller, and also the founder of Wisdom of the Sages with Kaustubha Prabhu. And on top of that, you on the Joe Rogan show recently as well, from what I remember. How did that go?
I think it went great. You know, Joe Rogan ended the show saying, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Hare Krishna. and we went for 3 hours nonstop. And I remember because I never really listened to Joe Rogan or podcasts or that much, and so I did a little bit of investigation before I went on. I just knew Joe for a while, and I didn't realize how big he was and how big of a reach he had. Before, when I'm listening, I was like, wow, people are doing interviews like 3 hours. What am I going to say for 3 hours? And it went by like that. We went 3 hours, and he's like, oh, wow, that was 3 hours. Okay, I guess it's a good time to stop.
No, that was, I listened to that. I listened to that. And by the way, can we do one thing, if it's okay, is could you use your Bluetooth headphones you've got? Can you connect it to your laptop? So if that's possible, that's perfect. So guys, honestly, I listened to that with Joe Rogan and I thought, wow, 3-hour conversation. How the hell did that happen? It was amazing. So one other thing is today, our topic, what we're going to be talking about, and it's something close to both of our hearts, and that is living our bhakti. Living our bhakti is so cute.
It's a balancing act, living your bhakti. It's a very confusing world, isn't it?
Oh, tell me about it. I have to say that sometimes when we talk about living our bhakti, it's like, first of all, there's these different layers, isn't there, of how to make sure our bhakti can be at the topmost. But we have these other aspects, the foundation layers that we need to work on as well to make sure our bhakti is up there. And that's one thing that comes to my mind right now, is that actually, if you think of bhakti, so if I use bhakti yoga, it's not an armchair philosophy. It's a religious doctrine or a Sunday ritual. It's a way of life. This is something the school of bhakti talks about a lot. And it says, while the process may appear simplistic, when practiced with sincerity and purity, it actually combines and synthesizes all our other disciplines. So one thing I would say, bhakti yoga is not an armchair philosophy. That's what I'm feeling on this. What do you think on that, Raghunath?
I think you're a beautiful man, and I cannot get these headphones to work. I really need you to handle all the tech stuff in my life.
I'll try. I'll talk less and you talk more. That's what we'll do.
Okay, I apologize. So re-ask your question, please. I was in technology hell for a moment.
Yeah. Just before you, please. I'm just going to delete a comment.
I was saying how how confusing the material world can be, and how many ridiculous options and bad choices it can offer us. They poetically describe the material world like and trying to become free and liberated and happy in the material world. They describe it as crossing an ocean. So I don't know about you, but I'm not like much of a sailor. So when I hear about these people who do, I did a solo trip around the world in a sailboat, I'm always like, are you kidding me? Or when I hear about people even people who went like Columbus, or these Cook, or these people who went on expeditions, I was like, man, what type of that's like scary courage. Are they motivated by greed or capturing slaves? But what motivated these people to get in a boat made of wood and cross over the ocean? First, you got waves, and you've got storms and cyclones, and then you can't see land on either side. You have to navigate with the stars. So it's very almost like a perfect analogy. Crossing over this world to the other side, to your spiritual life, is like crossing an ocean in a little boat. Where do you even begin? And there's so many dangers. And, if you're a parent, like raising kids, there's like a danger. There's crazy people out there. There's crazy friends. And a lot of us have been through a teenage life where we got offered so many types of crazy opportunities. I look back at my life. I remember being with an astrologer once, and he looked at me and said, "You should have been dead many times over."
Wow.
He said, because growing up, I just associated with a bunch of crazy people doing crazy things. And I've just been blessed. Not that I'm not dead by now. So anyway, how do you cross over the ocean in the material world? you take the company of people who are very spiritually focused. And that's important in any in any facet of your life. You want to hang out with people who are very, very focused on their spiritual life. Just today, I got a message from a really nice guy. He said, I'm on a spiritual path, and someone offered me LSD.
Okay.
And I got such an intense realization about life that I feel like I can never go back again to, material life. Unfortunately, even the hallucinogenics you take, although you see the world maybe from a different perspective, and I never thought of that, and I see the grains of, the lines in the wood, and I could stare at this all day, and looking at this wooden table and looking at the grain in a slab of wood, mental, and I can enter deeply into that. It's still, you're using some material thing to shift your paradigm of the world around. And unfortunately, you come down from it. And unfortunately, sometimes you have a bad trip. And unfortunately, it doesn't sustain. We want a high that lasts. That doesn't, it's not an up and down high. And I don't want to be dependent on some chemical to make me high, or even a herb, or even a plant. Some people ask me what I think of ayahuasca. And although I don't think there's any major addictive issues with ayahuasca or something like that, I just figure if there is a God in the sky, I don't think I have to take something external to understand my higher truths. I think there can be some use to certain things, but the problem is when you're messing with like otherworldly things, you got to be careful about what entities you're inviting in your body. I strongly believe, and this is what I love about the Vedic teachings of ancient India. It's not just like, oh, we believe in God. You're like a Judeo-Christian tradition. It's like a Judeo-Christian tradition that believes in that there's spirit in every plant life. It's like paganism mixed with Judeo-Christianism, mixed with like belief in UFOs, mixed with like ghosts, goblins, ghouls, mixed with astrology and astronomy and palmistry, mixed with metaphysics and mystics. It's sort of like, it sort of explains all those things. So, I know, it's quite, I even lost my train of thought even telling the story. So the idea is when you start to screwing around with hallucinogens, you don't know who you're inviting in. Like in the Vedas, they speak of subtle beings. They're subtle. I always believed in that they're subtle beings. I could always go into a place like, this place feels eerie. This place feels creepy. This place feels like haunted. And the whole idea of ghosts, like they're subtle, unembodied beings. That if you're in an intoxicated state, or that they call in India a tamasic state, you're inviting them in your subtle body. That's why you
sound like a Dalek right now.
That's why the Vedic psychology is called Bhuta Vidya, or the study of unembodied beings. What we would call in America a ghost. And so they say, like, and I'm sure it's not true with all psychological disorders, but there's some where it's obvious that there's many beings living inside one person. I didn't really want to take it here today, but why not?
So just what I'm gonna do as we speak, just for technical reasons, I'll mute your mic, then I'll bring it back. So that way it just makes it for the audience not to hear my voice coming through. So so if I don't, I'll make sure I keep on unmuting and muting. Apologies for that. I just want to bring on to one thing, that when we talk about bhakti though, it's like, I really want to know what your feeling about bhakti is. Like, bhakti means, like, if I'm hearing the love for the divine, as Srila Prabhupada said, who's our founder, Acharya, for those that don't know, he would often translate the word to pure devotional service, right? So this aspect of bhakti, when we say living our bhakti, and I love the aspect of what you went through, but how do we, if I was to ask you the first question, what does bhakti mean to you? Like, what is it that intrinsically is what bhakti is? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Okay. So a question is, who do more than anything else? So a very reasonable understanding is your spouse. Sometimes people love their kids more than their spouse. Sometimes people don't love their kids or their spouse that much, but they love their stuff more than their kids and their spouse. Or maybe they don't even have their kids and spouse. They just love stuff. People love their home if they feel like, yeah, this was my home. This was my generational home. My father's house gave it to me. This was my grandfather's house. They feel some connection. Sometimes they love their university. This is my alma mater. This is where my generations of my family went to here at Oxford or Cambridge or Harvard. Sometimes they love their political party. I'm very proud to be a Republican or a Democrat. Sometimes they love their race or their ethnicity or their sexual preference, and they identify themselves as that. We have a temporary identity. Sure, I'm a dad. I'm an Italian-American male, right? These are not real identities. I'm saying they're real in one sense, but in the biggest picture, they're, according to the yogis, it's unreal. Why is it unreal? Because it's for a moment. And this is how yogis see things. They zoom out. Did you ever drive a car? This is how I drive a car now. I drive with one hand and look at my iPhone with the other hand, and it says, go right, go left, go right. So you can't really see where you're going in the biggest picture. It just says go right, go left. I know to go right, I know to go left, but I don't even know where I am. In the old days, you had a map, and you could see, oh, I get it. This is north. This is south. This is where the Coliseum is. This is where the supermarket is. So there are material problems and material issues that are right in front of our face. And I have a material identity, which is right, obviously, right in front of my face. The yogis say, zoom out. What are you in the biggest picture? What are your desires in the biggest picture? Where do you want to go with life? In the very biggest picture possible. What are you always? Now, the interesting thing, so I'm a 54-year-old male.
No.
Yeah. That's not what I was always. Because 59 years ago, that wasn't a reality. And 59 years from now, it won't be a reality, isn't it?
That's true. Very true. Very true.
Right? So the yogis say for something to be real, it has to be real in the past and the present and the future. Presently, that's what I am. But future and past, I don't know what I was. They say that all we can say that we actually are. He says, I'm a pure spiritual being. And you know who else is a pure spiritual being? You're a pure spiritual being. You know who else is a pure spiritual being? I'm looking at this beautiful tropical plant in my house. That's a pure spiritual being. You know who else is? That sugar maple tree. That's a pure spiritual being. I have a sheep in my backyard. The sheep are pure spiritual beings. Now, the only problem with us being pure spiritual beings is we just forgot. We just forgot the basic reality of what we are in the zoomed out picture. And we're trying to solve these very right in front of our face issues. But those material problems for my material issues cannot be solved with material solutions. We have to zoom out. And although these might seem like spiritual, lofty ideas, they're actually truths that when applied will actually solve the short-term and the long-term issues. But you got to apply. That doesn't mean we should be insensitive to our initial. We have to extend. This is part of our job. We have to extend. By the way, I'm going to come full circle and answer your question. Rocco, can you grab me a tissue, honey? I'm blowing my nose like a dog here.
Just so everyone's aware,
allergy.
It's an allergy. It's an allergy. Just in case everyone's worried.
Through the computer, don't worry. You'll get no COVID on my nose. So anyway, in the biggest picture of what we are, we're not creating others, right? If I'm an Italian-American male, then what are you? What's your ethnicity? If I'm a Democrat, what are you, a Republican? If I'm black, what are you? White? What are you? I'm white. What are you? Black? Right? Or I'm straight. You're gay. You're gay. I'm straight. We are, once we find our identity on a material platform, we will always create an other, and don't expect there to be peace, because materially speaking, we're all different.
True.
I'm going to answer your question. Just let me finish this, flush out this thought.
No, it's actually very interesting to hear. I
Well,
like it.
because we are very frustrated with our material identities and the problems they cause. Because sometimes there's an appreciation for different culture, and I get that. Like, for example, I like Italian food, but I like to go to Japan, and because I love Japanese food. And then, I also like, I just like travel. I like to go to Spain, because in Spain, people act a little differently than they act in Switzerland. In Switzerland, people act different than German. It's understandable. You go to Italy, the men are hugging you and kiss you on the cheeks. It's not happening like that so much in Germany. They're not hugging you and kissing you in the cheeks in Germany. It's just like a different culture, and different cultures have different flavors. And who wants to be all the same anyway? So what we're trying to do now to sort of level the playing field is saying, okay, here's the deal. We're all the same. We're gonna strip down any differences, and it's not real, and it's not practical. It's not even gonna solve the very problem. What we really want to go against is hating. We got to stop hating people, and we got to learn to start being concerned about all people. Because if we're trying to find equality, it's not going to happen on the body. Why? You're smarter than me. He's stronger than me. She's more clever than me. How is there equality on a bodily platform? There can't be. Even twins aren't equal. The equality comes from something more subtle. And that subtleness is, I'm a spiritual being. I'm a spiritual being. You're a spiritual being. The tree is a spiritual being. The sheep is a spiritual being. The earth itself is a spiritual being. And when I develop that, it's called Samadarshana. This is the yogi's vision of reality. Then there becomes something that it's what we really don't like in the world. We don't like hate. We want dignity, and we want to learn how to imbibe that dignity, how to imbibe that dignity, not to flush out and whitewash everybody so we're all the same. It's not going to happen, and nobody wants that to happen, truthfully.
Correct.
People love to go to New York City because there's so many different ethnic types of food. Who would want to eat one type of food and just call it, we're all the same food? Our uniqueness is beautiful. And our cultural uniqueness is beautiful. And we're not going to get too proud of it. You know why? It's not us anyway. I'm not an American. That's just a temporary vehicle I'm driving around in. But what we do want is dignity. And we have to learn how to treat each other with love and with dignity, no matter what body they're in. I'm going to extend that outside the human species. We got to do that to the animals. We have to do that to the forest. We have to do that to Mother Earth. And we have to treat all living beings with great amount of dignity. So therefore, we have to learn how to love again. And in Bhakti, we are trying to figure out, how do I treat all beings, even if they're in different bodies or different shapes, with different preferences and different tastes and different languages? How do I treat them all with this type of dignity and love? And what do we all have in common? What do I have in common with a sheep and a sugar maple and a white pine tree? What do I have in common with all living and the earth itself? And someone from China and someone from Russia? What do I have in common? Our commonality is, I'm a spiritual being. They're spiritual beings. And the leaves are coming from the same root. The leaves, in one sense, have a connection with each other on the tree from the root.
Yes.
And the root is our source. Whatever you want to call source. India, there's so many different names of source. Krishna, Rama, Vishnu, Shiva, whatever you want to call source. God, Allah, higher power. So the idea is we need to connect with source, and we need to see God, not just in some ethereal cloud-like figure in the sky. I need to see God in every being's heart, in the planet. I need to see it in the heart of a cow, sheep, chicken, frog, even the ugly ones, even a little roach. I got to learn to see God. My daughter, the other day, we were doing yoga, and my daughter went up and just grabbed a little spider, walked that spider right out of the yoga studio, because there's some dignity there, even for an ugly little spider. I hate spiders. I don't like the way they look. But God is in the heart of the spider. So, why are we prejudiced against ugly bugs? We always say, I got an ant infestation. How many people would say that to bunny rabbits? I got a bunny rabbit infestation in my house, right? We are prejudiced against bodies. We don't like cockroaches. We love bunny rabbits. Why? It's just like some type of conditioning that we don't like the way it looks. I mean, imagine if we said that about humans.
That'd be like mad.
No, it'd be horrible.
Yeah. No,
I hate the short people of the world. You know what I mean?
He's only joking, everybody. He's only joking.
I'm short, don't worry.
No, so I've got to on this aspect, and it's great because you're talking about this material aspect of living in this type of material world and having that type of material perception is what I'm getting here. And to elevate our consciousness that we don't think on this, one thing that comes to my mind has to be to try and follow the process of bhakti, which, as we know, has been broken down into, it's really good. It's been broken down to 9 processes, which, for those that may not know, is what we call Shravanam Kirtanam. I'll say the English: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the Lord, deity worship, praying, executing orders, serving as a friend, and complete surrender. So this what you're just talking about right now, Raghunath, is that it's personally I'm seeing as that if we don't have these processes, what has been lined in, and we don't utilize that, then we will stay in that material world. We'll stay with those type of discriminations. We'll stay on that, and we're seeing it right now with everything going on in the world. You know, experience in America, we experience in UK. I won't go into the details of them, but everybody knows what we're talking about. And I just want to know, now we've got these processes of bhakti to help our vision not to look at this and think of short people and this, what you were saying. How can we imbibe these 9 processes that we have? Because let's face it, we started at the start. We said, life is the way it is. It's sometimes to try and bring it all in. It's mad. So is there any type of, from your side, some type of tips of how we can start these 9 processes and how we can take it forward?
Sure. Great question. We hear these words. If you're new to like the yoga system, and you hear, "Hey, clam up! I'm doing an interview live." My daughter comes up. We hear about these things like mantras, and they sound very mystical. But we should understand the idea of the guru giving the mantra to the student in the ear and whispering. It goes on today. In the same sense, like you are given sounds that you hold in your mind from childhood.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're not helpful sounds. Sometimes we have self-deprecating sounds. You're worthless. You're horrible. You're a slut. You're a jerk. You'll never amount to anything. They're given to us sometimes by people in positions of authority. And we take those mantras and we hold on to them and we run with them. And they become our identity. Now, we did an experiment today. By the way, I'm at the farm right now where I live, and we're having a teacher training. And one of the experiments today with the students was you sit with the partner and you do this practice, and you say, everything is wrong because. Right. And so I'll say, everything is wrong because Donald Trump. And you'll say, yes, it is wrong. And then you'll say, everything is wrong because we're in a global depression. I'll say, yes, everything is wrong. And then I'll say, everything is wrong because, and we go back and forth. And after like 2 minutes of this, you are so depressed because your consciousness is focused on what is wrong.
Yeah.
Here's another practice we did immediately afterwards. Everything is fantastic because. And it just shifts your view. And you're thinking, I'm very fantastic because I have 3 incredible kids right now. I'm raising 3 incredible kids. Everything is in fact, and they say, yeah, that's fantastic. And then the partner would say, everything is fantastic because we're sitting here in the countryside. It's so hot right now in New York City. And we get to be right here in the countryside with a creek by and a pond. We feel so fortunate.
I'm here.
And then we go back again. Everything is fantastic because. So one of the points we wanted to prove here is the sounds that come out of your mouth change your environment and change the trajectory of your life. We shouldn't underestimate sound. It is the most transformational thing that we can add to our life in a positive way or a very negative way. Right? We have this saying called paranoia. Have you heard that? Paranoia means,
yes, 100%.
what are you looking at? Why are you looking at me like that? What are you thinking about right now? Are you got something wrong with me? You think like the whole world has something against you and is conspiring to take you down. That's called paranoia. Then there is pronoia. Ever heard this word? It means,
no.
This is how a spiritualist thinks. The entire world is working for my evolution. Everything that happens is working for my edification and purification. And it's just a better lens to see the world. It's a better way to view reality. What do you think about that, Jagannatha?
Honestly, I've never heard of that before. That's nice. So I got paranoia, but not the other one. And I personally feel that in life, the lens that we have in front of us has been brought, in terms of our picture of the world, is brought by actually our upbringing in a way. They say nature and nurture, don't they? But I do feel sometimes that the lens that we wear in front of our eyes and see the world in does have some type of aspect of nature in there. And this is the part what you were talking at the start, when you were talking about how we see the world, how we see different individuals, how we discriminate, should we say. So I think that's where the lens of bhakti needs to be put in front of us. And that's why these processes that we're talking about right now is so fundamental. I before, when somebody said to me, hey, these are the 9 processes, if you use them, if you try and live your life, I'll be like, okay, but I'm a working man, I've got all this going on. But I'm realizing the more and more I try and utilize these processes, the more and more that lens that we're talking about right now is shifting into the point where we start to see things in a much more, do you use the word, was it zoom out at the start? Yeah, it was zoom out, right? You said,
yeah.
So it's like, I feel that's what's happening, that I'm starting to zoom out because of this process. And this is what I really like when we talk about living your bhakti, it's actually a practical process that we've got here, that we don't need to really reinvent the wheel, and we can utilize and get these type of realizations, what you're talking about, because you're living that bhakti. You're showing how to do it. So yeah, I agree with you completely. It makes complete sense with the lens. I just want that bhakti lens a bit more.
It's, you don't really have to do that much different. You just got to shift the mind. Now in yoga, we shift our body around.
Yeah.
And it's little shifts of our body that make huge differences for our well-being. And then if, you're doing down dog and up dog and warrior 1, if you're not doing it with breathing, just holding your breath, struggling, you're missing the peace that comes with doing a real yoga practice. And that's why adding deep breath to a physical practice changes you. So what happens is, first of all, asanas radically reform your body. You refine your asana with pranayama. If you're just doing asana without breathing, you'll get some benefit. It'll just be partial benefit. Once you add breathing, it changes the whole thing. Anybody who practices yoga knows this. But you refine your pranayama with mantra. Why? Because mantra are the thoughts that you're hearing in your mind. And a lot of us are trapped with why do you think there's such an importance with family, with love of your children, with treating your children well, with treating each other well, with respect? Why? Because we're creating minds. And if you've got a disturbed mind, it probably came from our childhood, right? And generally, a good therapist, even in the West, will take you back to a time from 0 to 7 where you went through some type of trauma. Then you got a divorce at that time, or your mother was absent, or your dad took off and left. And generally, we're trying to work out these problems from 0 to 7 very often. And we're bringing them to our adult life. And we're still struggling with our 7-year-old issues or 4-year-old issues. So what we're trying to do with mantra is we're trying to recreate the mind. That's where the word mantra comes from, the man. We're trying to recreate our mind with new sounds. Sounds are going to be there. That's why part of, we say this in America a lot, you are what you eat. I'm sure you say it in England.
Yeah.
And it's very true. You eat a lot of junk food, you feel like junk. But you are what you hear. And what do we hear nowadays? We hear media. Yeah. We hear lots of TV, right? And what media does, it creates a new normal. Now that's because this is how culture shifts. By making something normalizing it. It's no big deal. It's normal. Sometimes we make really horrific things normal. Do you ever watch a horror movie from like 1945 or 1949 or 1951? They're like not even scary. Or watch like Star Trek from the 70s. It's like, really? You think that's scary? Now you watch horror movies, it's like I once by mistake went to a movie, because sometimes me and my wife, just to get out of the house, we'll go to some movie, we don't even care what's playing, and they'll have some trailer. The trailer was so disturbing that I'm still disturbed from this movie trailer. Like, we've created such psychological horror stuff that like I would never even dream of. And I'm eating that stuff through my senses, and it affects us on a very deep level. We got to be incredibly careful what we consume. We're like delicate little children, and we're just putting anything in. I'm an adult, big deal. You're not an adult. You got to treat your kid like, you got to treat yourself like a child. Like, you got to be very, very, that's what a yogi is. It means you're very, very careful about what you're ingesting. Why? Because it's becoming you. It's becoming what you are. Isn't it? That's what reincarnation is. What you put in, you become that.
What you get out.
What you put in your eyes, what you put in your ears, what you put in your mouth, you're becoming that. Sorry.
See, no, this is good. And actually, I've just seen maybe Lyra Juno completely agrees. What we are, what we hear. So true. And also, just while we're doing this conversation, what I want everybody to do, if you have any questions, put it through. We're going to try and answer a few questions. I can see time, because we can just converse forever. This is such a big, vast topic, and it's something close to both our hearts. I just want to bring in, you are what you hear, you said, which is very interesting, because the first process of bhakti actually is hearing, right? So it's like we got shravanam. It's like, and then you, like you said, what we actually from hearing. That's the essence, everything coming in. But go on.
I just want to share that sometimes, and I've been to this place too, that I don't like what's coming out of my mouth. Maybe you've hurt people, or maybe you don't like the way you sound, or how you're speaking. If you don't like what's coming out of your mouth, you got to be really careful what you put in your ears. Because what you put in your ears will flow out of your mouth. That's to laugh. We think it's important to laugh. We think it's very healthy to laugh. But there came a time in my life where I just said, you know what? I'm not going to listen to this comedian anymore. I'm not going to listen to this comedian. It's almost like your diet. You get to a certain point where you're like, I'm not going to eat meat. Right? Or I'm not going to eat gluten, or I'm not going to eat refined sugar. I'm not going to, you get to a certain point where you're like, why would I do that to me? But I'm the same, I try to do that the same with sound. I don't want to listen to a person who every word out of his mouth is cursing. It affects my mind. I don't want to hear humor that's incredible. Even if it's funny, that's degrading. Why? Because I'm precious. And when you start to treat yourself with self-respect, right? Then you don't want to put junk food in your ears, because it's going to affect your consciousness. There came a time, I remember, I was really into, in the 80s, I was a musician. I was really into music. And then I went to an ashram, and I just turned off external music, except just spiritual mantra music, for about 6.5 years, 7 years. And then leaving being a monk and trying to like figure your way in the material world, like, who am I now that I'm not a monk? It's a very interesting tightrope to walk. And I remember, all right, I missed like a whole generation of music. What am I going to listen to? So I liked, hip hop and punk and things like that. And then I got into like, all right, I'm going to listen to this music, hip hop from the 90s. It changed a lot from 1985, what hip hop became in the 90s. It was violent, it was sexist, it was racist. And I was like, and it was good. It was really good. The problem is I found myself singing hateful lyrics. And I got to a certain point where it's like, I know too much. I don't want to put this in my mind. I don't want this to affect my consciousness. I'm over it. And I strongly believe, and you can call me conservative or wound up or uptight, but I strongly believe if you really care about your spiritual evolution, you got to go right to your iTunes or right to your libraries on your phone and start crossing out and deleting music that refers to women as bitches and hoes and words and things where you just don't want to, you don't want to eat that junk food, even if you like the taste, even if you like the sound. Just like, you don't think I like meatballs? I grew up Italian. You don't think I like Italian food with meat? I love it. But you know what? There came a point where I'm not going to eat this anymore. There's too much pain going on so I can eat a meatball sub. And it doesn't got anything to do with my taste. It's got to do with a principle. And there comes a time where you got to lead by principles rather than just whatever feels good. And so I started going, I'm not even asking people to do that, but I'm saying that was how I did it in my life. I realized, you know, and that's the problem with this. We're imbibing all this wisdom literature, right? After a while, you know too much. And then you can't enjoy it the way you used to in the old days. It's like being in the mob, right? You know too much, we're going to have to kill you. It's like, you know too much, your material life is ruined. We're going to have to kill your material life. So once you dive into your spiritual life, it's almost like you have to really stick your head in the sand because material life will never be the same anymore. What do you think, Jagannatha?
I love that point what you made about go through your iTunes or whatever and start to delete certain types of musics that are, should we say, derogatory, or certain aspects that really will affect our mind. Because like they say in spiritual life at the start, when we are starting off in spiritual life, it can be very wavering, and to get that foundation strong, we have to cut certain things out. I love that point what you said. And like you said, it starts with hearing. So this is what I find living your bhakti, like practical steps of how we can live our bhakti is what we need. And I love the aspect what you talked about meatballs. It's true. Not everybody will come from, should we say, a vegetarian diet. Myself, I started my spiritual life mid my life. I got more into it when I was later on, when I realized that this material world, what's happening around us is the same thing, 9 to 5 job. And then you go out, you get drunk.
Did you grow up in a Hindu family, a vegetarian?
I did grow up in a Hindu family. My mother was a vegetarian. I myself, at the start, was not. But when I came into Krishna consciousness, see, I'm not going to give up something because somebody says. For me, it was more about this aspect of actually practically imbibing it, not blind faith following, but actually, and naturally, when I started to hear, when I started to chant, it slowly, and then reading, this is the thing. So the hearing, chanting, and remembering, the Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Smaranam was so important in my life that slowly, these things that I was so attached to, like you were talking about, was now like, okay, I'm not as attached. And I actually had some logic behind why I shouldn't do it. Instead of before, it was this type of blind, yeah, I'm going to do this. Like I asked the question, and I always ask this question to anybody that is following the Bhakti tradition, like especially when I'm giving talks to students, etc. And I say, and if I see someone from, so we say, Indian cultural background, I'll ask the question, why do you do arti? What's the reason you're doing arti? Because, and then the reason I ask this is because it's spiritual science what we're following, isn't it? Would you agree? Like we're trying to, it has to have logic behind it. And they say, because my parents used to do it. And because this is what my mum said would be good luck for me to do. And I was like, okay. And then we go into explanation of the scientific process why we do arti, and they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't know that." So it's not their fault. I think they've got a lot of faith, which is nice. I'm a person that comes from where I'm a more of a limited faith, so I need to have that type of science behind it to help me grow. Does that make sense?
It makes more real sense than those who just have faith. You can't have faith without having what you have, which is realized faith. If we're just doing things out of rituals for good luck, we're not going to get really deep with this. It's like having a tree with no roots. The wind comes, it's going to blow down. Or one of your friends, you're going to go to university and you're going to meet some professor who says, there is no God. He's going to defeat everything that you said. And you're going to be like, oh, I never thought of it like that. You're going to meet some like very clever, reductionistic, soulless friend of yours who says it's all about nothing, is going to talk you into existentialism. You have to know explicitly why you're doing what you're doing, or else you'll have no roots in the philosophy. This isn't meant to be done just sentimentally with your senses and with your mind. You need to develop deep roots in philosophy. And that's why all these great stories are beautiful and fantastic, and stories of Mother Ganga and Sweet Baby Krishna and Lord Ram. But you have to know why there's chanting and why there's meditation and why you're choosing to give up meat and why you're doing arti and why you want to control your senses. And does this mantra meditation work? You don't just want to hear about the experiment. You want to enter into the experiment yourself. I don't just want to, you're not going to figure out spirituality by just hearing it from your mom. That is the equivalent of just like trying to understand honey by just looking at that jar of honey, maybe licking the jar. You're not going to get it. You got to open the jar. That's the work. You got to open the jar. You got to stick your little paw in that jar. You got to lick your hand. That's tasting the honey. And so in the same way, spirituality and your spiritual path and understanding this culture, it's useful if you're born into it because your parents give your kids directions. But every kid, whether you're born into it or not, have to opt in themselves. I am a spiritual being, and the only thing that will fulfill my heart is my spiritual life. It's not just something on blind faith.
Love it.
There's got to be some faith, but it's reasonable faith. Mm-hmm. So reasonable faith is, hey, I trust the way my parents live, they're doing it. But we still have to understand the what, or else we will give up these rituals like everybody in the West does when something more fun comes along. Yeah, I was Catholic for a while. I was this for a while. But I didn't really understand the meaning behind the ritual. I just gave up the ritual. Rituals are important. Rituals are great, but we need substance behind the rituals.
Love it.
Or else they just become rituals. We even use that word in a derogatory way. It's just a ritual. Rituals are great. We need rituals in our life. They're good for us.
Yeah,
it's more than anything. Sorry.
Just on that, it just brought me on to one aspect. I was speaking to a tutor Gopi recently, and we were talking about the power of prayer. And if you think about it, and this is something that just hit me, that actually spiritual science, yes, it's got science behind it, but why are we doing it? Because the more deeper we go, what happens? We start to get love, prema. We need to have that love to really help us go further. Like without Srila Prabhupada, he once said that without affection and love, our prayers that we offer are not offered properly. So it's like if we do it with blind faith, or if we think we're the biggest scholar, reading and all these things are there. It's very good, very nice. But if we don't actually understand why it's so, and it hits us in the heart, it's not gonna work. That's what personally. This is something that has made me think a lot. I would give you the example of the Buddhism philosophy, and I always use this with the students that I talk to. And it's like, what type of bucket are you? For example, and I'll cut it down very short. It's like when you hear something, it goes in one ear, comes out the other. How's that going to help you? There you got the ones that it goes in one ear, but it goes to the heart. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's why hearing's so important. But to have that mechanical side, we have to understand the processes, why we're doing it. What does it mean to do bhakti? What does it mean to offer to the deities? Why is it so important? Etc. etc. Because if we don't understand these fundamental truths, our bhakti foundation is going to be unstable, and then we're just going to keep on sinking. That's like, I'll give you a very firm answer. I had somebody say to me, and I had today, one person, it's fine, that's his point. Why are you not wearing tilak? You're coming online. Why are you not putting tilak on? And and this is something that yes, we can, but we're trying to show love from within at the moment. We've got a crowd that come from a different background. It's not just a certain demographic. We are there talking to people from all walks of life. This is a universal way that we can show this Krishna consciousness and actually how amazing it is. So why do we do it? Because there's spiritual science behind it. Let's understand that science, and then let's talk about it and go forward. So I just want your thoughts on that, because I had a question. Why don't we wear tilak? Why are we coming online without tilak? I wanted your thoughts on that.
On spiritual science or on tilak itself?
Just on the tilak. So we're coming on right now. One person saying,
well, I mean, I fail a lot of the Hare Krishna test. I'm not wearing a dhoti right now.
Yeah.
I've got shorts on. I don't have a sika. I just have a shaved head. I'm not wearing tilak today. I think these things are all nice. I think part of the Vedic culture is quite beautiful. I was actually just sharing appreciation for the subtleties, because in my morning class, someone asked the sika, or the choti, the little tuft of hair that the worshippers of Vishnu have on the back of their head. What's the point of it? And after doing some research, because I never really quite understood, I just said it was traditional, but I always know there's underlying teachings.
Yes.
And one is the way, like if someone says, I love you, they touch their heart when they say, I love you, or sometimes if you're very lusty, you can't use your intelligence because your energy is all in your lower chakras or your genitals, right? The choti, or the shika, you're supposed to tie a knot to it, and it's supposed to give slight reminding pressure to the crown chakra, to the top of the head. And also, when a lady in India, when they tie their hair back, it's braided at that point. They also, for the yogis, they symbolize the Ida, the Pingala, and the Sushumna nadis, and they affect the nadis of the body. Nadis is like a subtle physiology that you can't perceive with your eyes. In the same way, they have meridians for acupuncture. So, we were talking on the show, we're saying, what's the big deal? And there is no real big deal. It doesn't mean I'm disqualified from being connected with God because I don't have one. But there's just subtle things, part of the Vedic culture, that are very nice. Do you need to wear tilak every day? Not necessarily. Is it nice to wear it? Yeah, it's nice. Why? It's a very beautiful ritual. You're taking sacred clay, you're saying mantras, you're marking your body with mantras. I actually love, there's a big movement right now that says all these Vedic things are just superficial. Who cares? And my feeling is like, yeah, who cares? Why even bring it up? Meaning wear it or don't wear it. It's not even excuse me. Chew! I got the sneezies today. I'm just got some allergy going. Not
allergy, everyone. Allergy
only. That was a noisy sneeze. So my point is, it's not I don't care. I love wearing dhotis. I find them comfortable. I find them relaxing. Yeah. If you're non-Indian, pajamas, Indian pajamas. That's like white yogi pants that tie with a drawstring and like a long kurta. It's like the most comfortable thing a man can wear, right? I'm sure it is like that with the Punjabi suit that ladies wear. Like super comfortable. It's like all you want. What do men wear in America? We want these tight crotch pants. And I had an Ayurvedic doctor look at me once and goes, why are you wearing those jeans? And I thought to myself, yeah, why the hell do we wear jeans? They're so restrictive. And so when you wear a dhoti, it's good if you're skinny. It's good if you're fat. There's no extra pressure. It's just pleasant. And you feel almost like, because who wore dhotis? Jesus wore a dhoti. Buddha wore a dhoti. Everybody wore dhotis. Everybody wore robes. That's what everybody wore. No one wore Wranglers and Levi's. That's new. So anyway, the idea is, why do we wear tilak? Why not? It's just like, I'm working. I just told my story today. I woke up and I did a satsang in the morning for all the yoga students. We chanted and I told stories, and then I did my puja, my worship,
Yes.
and then I went to the dump. And I just got back from the dump. The dump is like where you take all your garbage and dump it, and yeah, it shows. It's like that is my impractical practical life. That's just how I live. Some days I'll wear tilak, not to make a statement to anybody, except the fact that I love putting tilak on my forehead because it reminds me that I'm a devotee of Lord Vishnu. I don't do it to be accepted even by the community of other people practicing bhakti. I just like the culture of bhakti. I like to wear a dhoti sometimes. I like to wear a chadar. I don't think it's cultural appropriation. I think it's cultural appreciation. I really appreciate the narrative of ancient India about clothing and colors and times of day and the foods we eat all affect our mind and our consciousness. So I really enjoy doing these subtle things. But I've just lost my hair, and I don't think I can even grow a sika now if I want.
Bless you. I just want to also say to everybody, tilak is very important. Like for me, if you those that don't know what tilak is, if you think we got the U on the forehead, and then you'll have a little, like, it looks like a petal here, and actually the U represents the Lord, the divine. And actually, what if we have respect, we're paying obeisances to the divine with our head. That's how it happened in Indian culture. So so similarly, that's what we're doing. We're paying obeisances to the divine all the time. That's why we have it. And then the leaf is actually seen as the female aspect, where if you think about it, if we want to get close to the father, how do we get close to it? We go through the mother. You're a father right now. I'm sure the kids go to the mother if they want something, and then the mother will come to you and say, hey, help out. So this is the reason we have it, because the mother is the closest. So we have the actual Tulsi, as it's known, and then we have the actual U, which is the footstep of Krishna. This is just something to just to remember. Of course, right now, please, we are just talking from our perspective. This is our lives. We're trying to talk about spirituality, and that's what we're doing. So we're having a conversation. And by the way, Bhakta Ramsey, if you want to know how to put tilak on, sure, get in contact with us, and it'll be so nice. And I'm sure Raghunath and myself will talk to you. That's not a problem. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Ramsey's great.
Oh, bless him. So can I just, I wanted to bring on as well, because you do some phenomenal things, especially Living Your Bhakti. I just want everybody to know that the wisdom of the sages is going on. This is a phenomenal service that our friend here, Raghunath and Kashtuba Prabhu, both do. And they do these daily podcasts. And I'm going to put the banner back on so everybody knows what it looks like. I took it off because your face was in the way. I didn't want to block your face. There it is. There you go. It's on the top. So this is a very, very amazing podcast. It talks about the Srimad Bhagavatam, takes into detail, puts into practical perspective, gets different people on the show, and actually talks about the different facets of this holy, divine scriptures. And I have to say, I absolutely love it. And one thing they're doing, and I want everybody, is that they're doing this from the goodness of their hearts. Just like if you're going to a priest and they do a service, they won't ask, this is our set fees. They're doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. And it's like a donation-based type of service they're doing. And he hasn't told me to say this, but this is something I actually feel that it's important that we support. So if you really like, and check it out. So go onto YouTube, go onto different places, Wisdom of the Sages, and also they got a website that you can check on. It's on Patreon. Check it out, and it's at the bottom. It's rolling right now. It's www.patreon.com/Wisdom of the Sages. Check them out, and if you feel like you'd like to help and take this further so they can reach many more people, please do. So I just wanted to just put that out there, because I think you and Kashtuba Prabhu are doing a fantastic service. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Jagannath. It's we started as a podcast, and it's just become sort of like, it's become a full-time thing, which has been a great asset to people hanging out in COVID. Is they just they can listen, they can binge listen to the Bhagavatam. We try to make it very approachable. Sometimes, especially with the audience that I teach to, like, a lot of our audience came from when I did the Joe Rogan podcast. They liked what I said, and they liked the spiritual concepts, and they just started listening to the Bhagavatam every day. A lot were my yoga students or people I knew through the music scene. So we have about 100 plus people that listen live every morning from around the world, mainly United States and Europe, in England, and then we have about 7,000 to 12,000 that listen every day on the actual podcast. So you can go to Apple Podcasts and listen. You can go to Stitcher, wherever you get podcasts, or YouTube. But what we did was, like you said, which is we wanted to do it like Brahmins, where people can give something if they want, but we always want to give it for free. Therefore, if people have nothing to give, then they just listen to the podcast. But we incentivized the Patreon page, where people give some pledge. Some people give $108 a month. Some people give $1 a month. Whatever you give, you get everything. And what we've created was live, almost like you're going to a yoga academy where you're studying yoga philosophy, live yoga classes, live yoga workshops, and all of them are archived. So once they're up and you're doing it live, you could miss it live and just go through the archives of kirtan classes, Ayurveda classes, mantra meditation classes, Sanskrit classes, Ayurvedic cooking classes. And we've created, there's even like a 12-step bhakti recovery for those suffering with addiction, but want something more spiritually focused, and that's a huge growing community. So it's got a lot bigger than we were expecting. And all we ask is that you give anything that you can afford. And if you like it, if you feel like you're getting a lot out of it, then you give according to your means. But the podcast is always free, and you can get it wherever you get podcasts. But I think the real important thing is that we hear on a regular basis, on our downtime, spiritual direction. We call it wisdom of the sages, not because I'm sagacious. We call it wisdom of the sages because the sages are in the pages of the Bhagavatam. They are like the GPS, our internal GPS. There already is, this is an interesting thing. There already is an internal GPS. And sometimes we call it deep intuition, or a premonition, or a gut feeling. There already is that, but you got to be careful, because sometimes your intuition is not your intuition. It's your fear. It's your anxiety. It's your lust. It's your greed. What you might think is your intuition might be covered by greed, might be covered by anxiety, right? So we have to make sure that deep intuition matches up with spiritual wisdom. So what happens by hearing on a regular basis, hearing truth on a regular basis, it starts to recalibrate our desires. And then when we have an intuition, we're like, actually, that's just me fearing failure. It's not because I want to pull back. It's because I'm not moving forward where I should move forward. That's not me caring about someone. That's me wanting to control someone. So you almost have a sounding board for your intuition. And what it does is it recalibrates your heart and your desires. So we need to hear wisdom literature. We need to hear Bhagavatam on a regular basis. If you're a yoga student or yoga teacher or done a teacher training, you study some yoga philosophy in your 200-hour or 300-hour. But how much do you study? Like a few hours, 10 hours at most, 20 hours? In order for this stuff to work, you need to hear it every day. You know why? Because we hear illusion every day otherwise. So we need to hear truth on a regular basis, and we need a community of people. And it's become this big, supportive community. And we even have chat boards that literally go on all day. And it's like, in the same way some mundane, materialistic chat board will just blah, 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 blah. They're talking about their realizations and their depth, and a book club and recipes and how they do offerings and what they're struggling with, and questions that are going through their head and things that are inspiring them, music and sharing music. it's really uplifting, and it's really happened very quickly, and I'm like honored to be part of it because I'm getting a lot out of it. I get lifted up. That's the power of community. That's the power of community. Community means accountability. So sometimes I'm feeling strong, I'm feeling powerful, and you come and you hear a class with me and you feel lifted up. And you know what? Sometimes I'm low and I need the community to lift me up. And you know what? There's regular accountability. Some days I don't want to wake up at 5 a.m. and do the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm just exhausted. I went to bed late. One of my kids was sick, whatever it is. But you know what? If I don't wake up at 5 a.m., there's going to be a whole bunch of people waiting there for me. So it makes me wake up and read on a regular basis. And it's so good for me because I myself need to check in. I need accountability.
I just want to also, just on this, I have a few of my friends. One is Mahesh, who also comes to your sessions. Got Devki, beautyandwifelife.com. She also comes. And what I love about it is this accountability, what you've said, is that they check in. Every day there's a commitment that we do. That if we want to elevate our consciousness, then we need to be made accountable. And I love that point, what you've done. So I'm just saying, if anybody wants to connect and check this out, and I have to say, and the caveat is you got to be serious about it, and that is that check them out on Wisdom of the Sages. And I love your podcasts you do with the people as well. I've been watching those as well. So just if anybody wants to connect with you right now, of course we've got your Instagram, which is Raghunath Yogi. So Instagram, we've got Facebook, which is Raghunath Yoga. And then we've got Wisdom of the Sages as well, who are also on Instagram and Facebook. And also, if you want to connect with myself, if you have any questions, I'm loving the conversation going on. And thank you, everybody. Manoj, thank you for the question. We'll try and come on to it. I know we've gone a little bit over time. Since we're working on Facebook, I think we can sort that out. We can answer your questions. Jayashri, thank you so much for your words of wisdom. I really, really appreciate that. Remember, we're just having a conversation here, guys. It's nice that you're having that dialogue. Let's keep that dialogue going on. Some of the words we'll be saying here is to actually test our thoughts, our spiritual science, why we do what we do, and also how we live our bhakti. This is what we're trying to do right now. So I just want to Raghunath Prabhu, I've had a question, and I think maybe we can answer this question from yourself. And then what we can do is we can come to a close after that. I'll just bring it up, the question. So the question is, Manoj, thank you so much. And thank you for your question. He says, if you care about people and talk politely, but most people consider that you are weak, you used to take advantage of you. How do you deal with these type of people? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. So you're being polite, etc. He's saying I don't think he's saying he is, but he's giving this question. And they'll take advantage. How can we deal with these type of people when we're trying to live our bhakti?
Great question. You know, I grew up sort of a little brash, a little loud, a little aggressive.
Is that your Italian nature coming out there? No,
I'm joking.
Italians are wicked.
I don't know what that is, but that's what I was. A little sarcastic, funny, rude. And I got to a certain point where I didn't want to be that guy anymore. And I just decided to change. And for the most part, I'm pretty kind. I go out of my way to be a little thoughtful, a little kind. I tend to be a little obtuse, so I have to check in with people. I said, hey, did I offend you when I said that? I'm a person. Be the person who's trying to act. And you know what? If people are just rude and want to take advantage of you, don't hang out with those people. But I don't want the fact that they've normalized cruelty, rudeness, sarcasm. I don't want, okay, that's the playing field. All right, here I come. I don't want to play that game. You guys can play that game. I don't want to play that game. I want to play the game that the previous masters played. Because I've got issues and I want to deal with my issues. And it's not going to help me to be that old incarnation of myself. And if there's people that are just like too aggressive or too out of control, I can love them from a distance.
That's it.
I hope that helped. I don't know if that was any good.
No, that's good. In a way, you're saying you're trying to give your association, but don't take their association. And another thing, by the way, I love Italians. I was only joking. So everybody, I went there recently. Wow, what an amazing place. So just on this aspect, what you're saying is just what Raghunath said there. Love them from a distance. One great example, and this came from Mahesh, by the way, who's on your Wisdom of the Sages. Mahesh Hayward. He said that he had a troller. A troller is a person that follows him because he was quite famous on YouTube, etc. And and this person, what they did was they were just sending really abusive stuff, etc. And he, instead of retaliating, what did he do? He went by the beach, he sat down, and he just meditated and just tried to send love to that person. And that made me think, wow, what an amazing guy. Like, some people are like, hey, I'm getting fed up with this. He went and just sat in a corner. And you can only do that if your bhakti is strong. This is the point. See, this is why living your bhakti. And he showed that day when I heard that, I was like, wow, this guy is living his bhakti. Your Wisdom of the Sages thing must be working. So I just want to put that point in, and that we have to sometimes show love from a distance, like what Raghunath just said.
And I think we have to be careful about like being the police for everybody else.
That's good.
It's first of all, it's annoying, and it's not attractive. And being more the police for ourselves and our own personal integrity. It helps, you know what I mean? And Mahesh is a great soul. I'm so glad he's on the show on a regular basis. Yeah. I don't know where these people are coming from. They're probably coming from you, but I really enjoy having him here. If you want to stay connected with me, just Instagram is I'm on the most. Raghunath, Raghunath, Raghunath Yogi. And, join us sometime in January. We have this we take great groups in January to India with Radhanath Swami's Eco Village, the Govardhan Eco Village. We have a 300-hour training where we do like a bhakti, basically a bhakti cultural immersion, where it's not just asana and a pranayam, but it's that plus cooking, like Vedic cooking, Ayurveda for yogis, kirtan, sacred literature. Now we just started a full wisdom training where we're studying Bhagavad Gita, sacred literature, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is one of the sacred books on bhakti. We have a Kirtan Academy, and we have a Ayurveda Academy for people who want to learn just enough for Ayurveda for yourself. But that's all on supersoulyoga.com, supersoulyoga.com. And it's an amazing way to start your year. I'm so glad we did it this year. We get great students, great teachers. Radhanath Swami's there for most of the time, and it's quite inspirational.
And on that, I had Madhu Kirtan on, and he said about this, and he said that, so the Kirtan, you're doing the yoga, and you've got Kashtuba Prabhu who's doing part of the wisdom. So the Wisdom of the Sages is carrying on in person, it sounds like. So thank you very much for sharing. Maybe if you can send the details for it, then we can also advertise it at some point, and I can always send it as a story. But I'm coming to the end. I can't believe this. We've gone over an hour. This has been a very, very nice, and I hope I can speak to you again at some point, because I always find you, Raghunath Prabhu, you're such an amazing character. You really, really show the dynamism in spiritual life, and I just want to thank you for the service that you're doing, at the same time for showing us actually how to live our bhakti. And I truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Super honored. Did you lose me there? Hold on a second.
No, sorry. You're here.
Thank you so much. Super honored. And I love this more than anything, is sharing this lifestyle, because we've had so many great teachers in our lives. I feel so fortunate. I was sort of like a teenage train wreck, and then I met some great souls in my life. And this is like the story of bhakti. We become in debt to the teachers in our life that have come into our life, and they change. It's almost like these guys that work the trains. There's a guy sitting in a little booth, and he pulls a switch, and that train that was once heading south is now heading north. It's not like you're changing that much, but you're taking all that you got, and instead of using it for your own ego, You're using it as like an offering. So I've had such great teachers. I meet great teachers on the way. I meet great people like yourself. We have this whole community. And I feel like life is really either just to upgrade or to degrade. And so those are our options right there. What will it be? What are you going to want today? You want to upgrade your life or degrade your life? And you can do that with your food you eat, the media you consume, the podcast you listen to, right? Those are our choices. And we're creating ourselves for tomorrow today. That's the crazy thing. And we're just a few choices away, right? In the same way, we're a few choices away from wrecking our lives, isn't it? Just a few choices away from destroying your life. You're a few choices away from being a liberated soul.
Thank you so much. You know, you also, another thing I think you need to add to your accolade is motivational speaker. Loving it. You know, you got to do that.
Big mouth. I got a very, very big mouth.
So thank you everybody for joining. Stay tuned. Next week, I'm not going to, check on my Instagram, by the way. If you want to know who's coming up next week, I really, really want you to check. So it's Jagannath_Dasa. And on there, you'll be seeing the lineup. And hopefully, I'm praying that I can sometime have, for part 3, have our lovely Raghunath Prabhu on again. It'll be an honor. That's it.
Thank you, my friend.
Okay.
It's a great day for a great day. I'm